There's a lot of things about our village that people don't know about. A lot of things that, we like to keep private. If it's real history you want to see, you need to see the Stones of the Gods. It's a 7-hour hike from here. But you can always stay in one of the cabins down the road.
Cabin in the woods. Let's not delay.
What is that thing?
Twilight Day, Donna.
What does that mean?
Leprechaun.
Let's go.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Brian.
This is our review of Leprechaun Origins, starring Dylan Hornswoggle Postal, Stephanie Bennett, Andrew Dunbar, Melissa Roxburgh, Brendan Fletcher, Teach Grant, and Gary Chalk. Directed by Zach Lipovsky. Released in 2014 on, best I could find out, Brian, a budget of somewhere between $1 and $2 million. Went on demand and direct to rental. So, Leprechaun Origins. We finally return to our little green monstrosity. After all this time, the previous 6 installments in our back catalog here on Film Strip.
All this time and all that hype.
Yeah, like
There's been a lot of hype.
Yeah. What, 2 years worth at least? They've been talking about this movie, the WWE that is. Mm-hmm. And we've been kind of following it. It actually is what made us go beyond Leprechaun in Space and review those 2 In the Hood movies, which in the end turned out to be good ideas because those might be the best ones of the series.
Well, maybe.
But you know, I actually went back and re-listened to all of our old podcasts, and I amazingly still agree with myself and about those. But I needed a refresher, and I sure enough wasn't going to rewatch any of the Leprechaun movies because from what I had understood and what little background information I kept up with on this one was they were really going in a different direction. They were going to do serious, scary and all this. And I was most interested in how they wanted to play the Leprechaun character. I think I knew, just looking at the cast and kind of who they were and where they were getting people from and the way they looked and stuff, I'd already in my mind formed, well, these are our pretty people that we're going to slaughter, so that's fine, whatever. I wanted to see what they did with the Leprechaun character, the idea of Leprechaun Origins, the many hilarious conversations we've had about the shifting origin story of this thing. Yes. I was like, well, this will be neat to see what they keep and don't, and so I was intrigued for sure. I don't know that I anticipated this movie coming out, but I definitely was interested in what the WWE was going to do with it and what their take was on it.
I would agree. I was interested especially in to see how they played the Leprechaun character, because I think you could have gone with the Warwick Davis version of Leprechaun and made him a little more scary. And then what they ended up doing with the Leprechaun character, what the fuck? I mean,
well, let's just say it now. He was barely in this? I mean, and could have been any insert your monster here. Yeah, really.
To say that this movie stars Dylan Postal is a mockery. Because I would bet that he has 0 camera time, no dialogue at all in this movie, and everything that you saw that was apparently a leprechaun was all CGI.
Yeah, there may have been one shot of like a head casting that was maybe him wearing a mask, but I'm with you. I don't keep up with the Hornswoggle that much, so I didn't know that I would have recognized him. But even he's a little person, but even the shape of the creature and stuff, there was no way to know whether or not that was him or if it was CGI or whatever. And
no,
he's
was not him because Dylan Postal is a chubby little guy, right? I mean, he's round. Like most people like him, he's round. He has a lot of...
He looks like a leprechaun.
Well, I would have much rather they just had him be the leprechaun and made him scary.
Yeah.
But instead they made this CGI worm-like thing. It was terrible.
It's very, very weird. And on a very cheap budget. Must be noted, the budget there.
Yeah, I will say this, though, Jay. For a budget that low, they did pretty good work.
Well, and I want to tell you where I got that from. Reading interviews with the director, Zach Lepovsky, who is known for doing like low-budget sci-fi type horror and stuff, is they said that, I mean, he pretty much said, I did the movie with the same budget but a different scale. So, you know, the money that WWE put in this has been in the marketing of it, not in the actual production of it. So they went cheap in every way they possibly could. And I think it's evident throughout the movie.
Yeah, I think so too. But as far as the production value and the look of the movie, they did a pretty good job with that little amount of money compared to what we've seen in the past with more money than that.
Very true. And I do want to talk about the look of it and the feel of it, but I guess before we get any further, go ahead and give people a plot summary, Brian, and spoil the heck out of it. I don't know if anybody's seen this before reviewing it. Maybe you have. You know, I'm going to tell you now, if you dropped your $3.99 on rental for this, folks, well, you're in our club now. So Brian, tell people what Leprechaun Origins is all about.
Ben, Sophie, David, and Jenny are backpacking through the lush Irish countryside and quickly discover the idyllic land is not what it appears to be when the town's residents offer the hikers an old cabin at the edge of the woods. However, they soon learn that they are offered as a tribute to a violent leprechaun who the town is indebted to for having stolen his gold years before. One by one, the leprechaun picks off our American tourists as well as some of the locals until it is just Sophie left to fight off the monstrosity. In a final moment, she grabs some gold coins to distract the leprechaun, grabs a machete, and chops its head off. But when running across the field, we hear the sounds of more leprechauns in pursuit as the credits roll. Oh boy. There we go,
Brian.
Jay. That is our plot summary. And that in itself doesn't sound too bad.
Actually, yeah, I was going to tell you, if that had been the movie we saw, I would be kind of happy because that sounds like something not great, but okay enough to watch.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
What this movie is, well, we'll get into it here. I want to start with some general stuff, though, because I texted you something, and I think I threw you off. I said, for the first 20 minutes of this, it's every Platinum Dunes horror remake I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And what I meant by that was the films like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboots, not the most recent one, but the one that was the remake with Jessica Biel, and then the one called The Beginning with Jordana Brewster and others, and then the Friday the 13th remake, and for the most part, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Michael Bay's Platinum Dunes label is really kind of his horror label, and they do low budget, relatively low budget, but slick remakes of old horror properties. And the setups are all the same. It's a dark place with people, wearing not scantily clad, but summer clothes.
Sometimes,
and and pretty people in a dark room with something chasing them that flashes in front of them that you barely get a good look at, and when you finally do, you're like, that's it? And then there's a lot of really overly stylized gore and endings that leave you supposedly wanting more, but really just wanting your $7.50 back. That's a Platinum Dunes remake. Gotcha. And so that's what I meant. And I, in some ways, I was a little surprised because I've seen other WWE films, more recent ones. We'll put No Holds Barred on the side here for right now, but since we did review that too. But I've seen kind of what they can do, and some of them look better than others. So production quality-wise, I thought, well, this looks like a horror movie, and everybody in it seems to know they're in a horror movie of some kind. Like they all act the same way, which is really what surprised me.
Yeah, it does look like a horror movie. And, I will say this, Jay. If we hadn't invested so much time in the Leprechaun series, which we probably shouldn't have done, I wouldn't be as pissed off at this movie as I'm going to be in the end. Because as a horror flick or a scary movie, even though it's completely tropey and everything in the book is here, it's not too terrible. But to call this a Leprechaun movie just kind of makes me mad.
Well, two things. To call this a Leprechaun movie in the slide of what has been is one thing. To call it Leprechaun Origins is a totally other thing. And let's just get into that right now, okay? First off, legacy of this series. at its best, and I'm using that term very loosely here, okay? Those movies have been campy fun, right? Like they, when they did the goofiest stuff possible, going to the hood, Vegas, those were the most fun entries in the series. And when they figured out how to get the Leprechaun's dialogue right, when it was at its best. And they had at least fun people for it to play off of. They may not have been great actors, but there was something there, right?
Absolutely.
So it could be funny and kind of goofy, but never really scary. This movie, this cannot be scary, okay? It can look scary, but it doesn't have to be scary.
Right.
So that's one thing. The second thing is the origin idea. When you tease me with that word, origins, I think I'm going to actually get, okay, we're going back and rebooting the franchise. We're starting over. We're going serious with it, right? And there's not a damn thing about this that's origin worthy.
Exactly.
Not one thing. There's like 3 lines of dialogue that this chick reads out of a book, in the basement, that's supposed to suffice that, but that is bullshit. This movie has no intention of being an origin story of anything.
No, I mean, if it were the origin story, we would see when they stole his gold. Not
exactly
50 years later or whatever we're at.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's an origin story buried in dialogue in this movie with the Hamish character, Gary Chalk, the local that kind of befriends them magically and all this. And I'm like, where's that movie? That sounds more interesting. Let's see these people who are just farmers come across this mine/cave. They find all this gold, and then they start getting picked off, and they have to come up with the deal to, we'll offer tribute to the leprechaun, and then that way he won't kill us all, and we leave us hanging with that. That's an origin story.
Yes.
This is for semi-gorgeous people hiking through the woods, waiting for Jason, Leprechaun, Freddy, whatever to pick them off.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about the Leprechaun here? Because this is my biggest beef with this movie, is that this is not a leprechaun. Number one, it says no words ever in the movie. It growls. And it's a terrible growl the whole time. It looks and sounds more like a werewolf is attacking you than any kind of leprechaun. And it, as far as I can tell, it has no features of a leprechaun, period. No green outfits, no
It
anything.
looks like one of the alien creatures, I'm trying to think of the movies I've seen it from. It's not an alien so much, but it looks like something that, I don't know, is dreamt up into one of those, you know what it looks like? It looks like one of the monsters that fell off of Cloverfield, if you've ever seen that movie.
I haven't.
It looks almost exactly like those little spider creatures. It looks like one of those little spider creatures that fell off of that thing and is just at you the whole time. And really, there's nothing leprechaun-y about this leprechaun.
No. This could have been insert any creature here as your bad guy. Because it doesn't appear like it's trying to find its gold at any time in this film. It's just trying to kill.
Well, now it is for gold things, because Jenny is the one that gets tortured the most. She gets an ear ripped off by a gold earring. She gets her tongue essentially separated because he pulls out her gold tongue stud.
And he does put a gold watch out to let him know that.
Right, yeah, that was immediate. Let's just set it up here. These 4 people are, we have an opening with 2 random people that we never know are running through the woods, and one of them drops a bag and is having to pant out and, leaves a machete stuck in the ground, and then the leprechaun or something shows up and tears them to shreds, and later that'll become a plot device. Then we meet our 4 people, and they wind up on a little pub in Irish countryside, right? And they're talking about what they want to do the next day, and ye old local befriends them and says, "Oh, you need to go and see this is a 7-hour hike," and blah blah blah, and talks them into this trip that
7-hour hike. Come on.
Talks him into this trip that only one of them really wants to do, but whatever. So
3 of them end up wanting to do it.
Right.
But, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, medical school, apparently jerk one-dimensional boyfriend guy doesn't want to do this. Ben, Sophie, David and Jenny are just there for the party, it seems like, and for the not having sex. And Sophie is there to, we don't know what she's there for. She's the historian. She's going to go to Cal Berkeley to study history. It's like everything is filtered to the fact that she's a soon-to-be graduate student, which automatically makes her the smartest person in the film.
Right.
Somehow. And he takes him to this cabin on their land and is like, okay, you're good. And then he leaves his gold watch out, on the doorstep. And I was like, well, that's an immediate clue that there's like bait for the leprechaun. Right. It's like taking people out to go deep sea diving and then throwing, chum in the water so the sharks come and get them. That's what it feels like.
Exactly. That's a good analogy. But yeah, those kids, you don't get a sense that you care about any of them except for Sophie, maybe, right? You got the Donnie Wahlberg knockoff and his horny girlfriend.
Brendan Fletcher. I have seen Brendan Fletcher in stuff. He's the only person I actually recognized from things. He was in Freddy vs. Jason, so he's got a history with this. He was in a really neat movie called Rampage. And then he kind of vacillates between these really bad, scare films and kind of intense, dramas on television. He's been in The Killing. He's in Bates Motel. I mean, he's been around. Okay. I recognized him. Everybody else, though, I was like, I've probably seen on one of the, 90210 ripoff soap opera kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, to me, it was the Donnie Wahlberg ripoff.
Yeah, he does.
He looked like Donnie Wahlberg's badass.
You know what? He actually looks more like a leprechaun than the leprechaun did.
Oh, jeez.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so you got those guys, and then you got the guy who looks like Josh Hartnett or whatever, and he's supposed to be the boyfriend of the hot one, which is Sophie, right. And she mentions how she may go to the East Coast with him for school, and then he gets all pissy about it. It's like okay.
Let's talk about that
set
scene.
Up as the boyfriend who doesn't want his girlfriend around.
Let's talk about the scene for a minute, because that really goes down partially in the bar, partially when they're at night in the cabin. Sophie essentially strip teases in front of him, down to her underwear, and he's sitting there reading a book and paying her no mind. I kept waiting for, when she went to bed, and then we see David and Jenny making out, and David passes out drunk while Jenny's trying to screw him. And I kept waiting for Jenny and Ben to, go meet up in another room and screw. That was their thing, that they were screwing around on each other's partner on the side. I mean, that was the only thing he didn't do, because that guy couldn't have been more put off by that girl.
Yeah,
if he tried.
Unreal. Both the girls are the aggressors, and they both get denied.
Exactly. Yeah.
When does that happen?
I'm just sitting there in the room going who the many people that probably wrote this somewhere are reliving, revenge or something that happened to them. Because
could be, I don't know, but both of them are denied, and but anyway, there's just no chemistry between any of these people, in my opinion. It's just kind of like, who are you supposed to care about other than Sophie? Apparently no one. So that immediately tells me that Sophie's the one we need to pay attention to, because everyone else is going to die because they have no worth in this movie.
No, they're all one-dimensional, yeah.
Yeah, so as you said, we're sitting in the pub, this Irish pub, drinking the darkest beer possible, and, talking out loud, and the natives are overhearing the conversations, smiling. You get the old woman smiling in the background the whole time. That was hilarious. And then you got Hamish.
Yeah.
And Hamish, he overhears that they're looking for an adventure. And immediately says, "Oh, you want a real adventure? Whatever." And tells them about this 7-hour hike. I mean, come on, people. Who's going to hike 7 hours?
You're going... Yeah, and in the car ride up to the cabins, we've met his surly son, Sean, because every Irish movie has to have somebody named that. And he's driving around, and he's talking about the history, and they're drinking beers and all this stuff. And Sophie asks him, "Hey, we saw these rocks with these weird markings. It looked like pigeon toes painted on them. What does those mean?" "Oh, I don't know. Those have been here years before we were." I was like, I thought you knew everything about this place, bro.
Right. So that should have been clue number one, that they don't want you to know.
Clue 2 is that he's a farmer and he's wearing a Rolex, like a real one. And they're all like, "Oh yeah, somebody gave it to me." And and then he gives him that whole sinister, like, "Maybe it was my hospitality." You know, and he's just, you know, he's trying to be funny with him. And I'm going, well, they're doing a good ripoff of the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre where everybody in the town's in on it and like everyone you meet is in on it, you know. And I was like, well, that's exactly right. I mean, and I would expect no less because I actually looked up this screenwriter, Harris Wilkinson, and I don't know how much of what he wrote is actually here, but I do know his previous jobs, besides writing spec scripts now for different studios and working on TV pilots, was writing for Chicago advertising agencies. So all he knows how to do is set up. He doesn't know how to pay off anything. And so the setup here is, I'm like, well, it's what I expect a horror movie to be. Okay, well, okay, we're going to go with it. Clearly, these are the bad guys in the front seat. These are the 4 people to. So, because can we just talk about the ridiculous setup of what happens with them? They are in a bar they've never been to in their entire lives, right? This isn't like Family Land that are crawling across here. And people they have never met offer them a free place to stay. Yes, we're making poor decisions. That's all I want to say. Like, you are the worst tourists ever. And I'm like, is this movie set in like the early 90s or something where these people had reason to be this culturally stupid? Because no one these days, no one would travel abroad as an American and not have your guard up. You should. We're at war with half of the fucking world right now. So why on earth would you trust anything like this? It makes no sense at all. Stupid, cheap TV commercial writing.
Yep, I would agree with you 100% there. It's terrible.
And I'm actually in the back going, okay, in what order are these people going to get killed? and I kept vacillating between David and Jenny, which one was going to get it first, but I knew one of them was going down first, right? Like, they were a disposable couple, right?
Yep.
The other couple was going to find love in the midst of tragedy, and maybe both of them survived, but probably only Sophie. I had figured out Sophie was Survivor Girl from the start.
I think it was laid out that way, and it was quite obvious. Yeah, that she was our main character, so she was going to be the one to make it to the end at least. But yeah, I'm with you. I knew right away that we're going to lose probably the other couple first, and then there's going to be this scene where the boyfriend almost looks like he is apologetic for being a douchebag or something before he goes. Right. Which I don't think we actually got, but by the way.
No, we never did. No.
I was the same. I'm going, okay, this is almost too predictable what's going to happen here. But anyway, we're going about it, and they're drinking in this little cabin, having a good time. The girls get denied the sex, and then all of a sudden there's noise. Right. Noise is heard, and people start walking around like, "What's going on?"
I love how you say that, because I think that was probably on the paper too. Noise is heard. Yeah, noise is heard. Redhead goes to check it out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because that's pretty much what happened.
Yep. And then you get the big reveal. They're locked in the cabin with no other exits except that fireplace thing.
yeah, which is conveniently there. I don't know. I never knew there was
the way the leprechaun gets in.
I guess so. Well, first he comes and takes the watch, and then he flashes by the window, and I'm actually sitting there going, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the first Leprechaun movie when they get trapped in the house, and the leprechaun is attacking the house. Yeah. And I thought, what a thing to go back to. But this is a low-budget movie. Clearly, this house is the set, so we're going to go with it. And, okay, and I'm actually giving the movie what it wants at this point. I'm not totally rejecting what I'm seeing, even though I'm beginning to question, where's the origin story? Did I just hear the origin story told, through mysterious looks and scenes? Where are we? And the first attack is coming, and I'm like, well, I'm waiting for Jenny's head to be ripped through the wall, because clearly that's what's about to happen. But it doesn't. This movie plays with you. All of that early is just people banging on or it's just the leprechaun, or should I say leprechauns, banging on the doors, and everybody in the house sitting there freaking out. And what the big reveal is Jenny takes a seat by the fireplace freaking out with her, the spotlight on her gold earring.
Yep.
And that little hand comes up behind her. I think that may have been Hornswoggle's only scene, is he plays the hand. Yeah. And he rips out her ear with the gold earring.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that looked painful.
Yep, that was awful. But so what? That's the thing I said.
Exactly.
I was like, and okay, we got to talk about leprechaun vision. now
Oh,
because
God.
he has predator like vision, but instead of being red and greens and stuff, it's all like things that are black and things that are gold, and gold and people are gold.
Exactly. This was terrible. I hated the leprechaun vision. It just made no sense. Why would this being have this particular type of vision? Because he's honed in on gold?
Because horror movie monsters are supposed to have some kind of cool vision, Brian. That's why it's some trope they're borrowing from several other franchises that are a lot better than this. But he's never done that before. That's what kills me. Is I realized then once and for all, the Leprechaun is not going to be a character in this movie.
No,
he's going to be the shark, the monster, the Jason, the Leatherface, the whatever. To
Don't
kill
give him
everything.
that much credit.
Well, I'm putting him as that's what he is supposed to fulfill in terms of a role, but he has no character. He has and I knew then I was like, there's not going to be any dialogue. He's never going to explain his motivations. He's never even going to sit him down and give him the James Bond villain speech about this is why I'm doing this to you. No, he's just the monster in the lake. He could have been friggin' Loch Ness for all we cared.
He sounds like a werewolf. Looks like some weird snaky thing that goes around. I mean, it could have been anything. The only reason we're calling this a leprechaun is because Dylan Postal's Hornswoggle character in the WWE is a leprechaun, or supposedly. I mean, is that the only reason that we're going to give this a leprechaun feel? Because otherwise, this monster that's attacking them, it has nothing to do with leprechauns, and it could have been anything out there.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It could have been the werewolf in the woods. It could have been one of Loch Ness's children. Yes, it could have been anything. It didn't matter. It was just ridiculous setup. They lock them in the room. And here's the thing: is we may know this as an audience, or at least start figuring out that like, well, clearly they were set up. But then to show us the setup of Hamish, his son, and his other friends sitting on top of the hill in their vehicles, going, "Oh, you reckon it's over yet?" Waiting to go clean up the mess, and talking about, we couldn't have that thing come and kill our peoples, and it's got to be done, Sean, and I'm like, the dad is passing on the tribute legacy to his son, and
who is not interested.
Yeah, who's like is really conflicted about this, as you should be, because you're sacrificing people, for goodness sakes. But I don't know, that needed to be, again, the movie we're getting is not this, but I was much more interested in how we got to that point, because that would have been at least something different to see. And if the Leprechaun's not going to be a real character in the movie, at least make the monster story worth knowing. At this point, it's only told to us by people sitting there. And in horror movies, if you tell, don't show, well, you suck and you fail at what you're doing. I'm sorry. That's just the reality of it.
I agree. The Sean character I kind of liked, because he was the one who was just like, did not want to do anything, did not want to be there. And I was waiting for him to turn on his dad, which eventually he kind of does.
He kind of does with an unloaded gun, but yes. So he does.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to how that gun gets unloaded too, by the way. So another part one callback. But so they get into the basement, right? And the locals are giving chase. And it's in that basement that Sophie comes across the magical book of wonders that tells her everything we're supposed to know. And like, she looks at a map and goes, oh, we these stones are like a barrier. And if we get beyond those, the leprechauns won't go beyond that. And I'm like, how do you know that from that? that was cheap.
Yeah. And there's that. And then, I mean, the basement is like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Holocaust Museum. They've got just clothing of all the people that have been killed or eaten or sacrificed.
Yeah, there's old cell phones.
In this
shoes.
Basement.
Well, I mean, that was...
as well as all these torture devices.
That was a Texas Chainsaw moment. I was like, this is like Leatherface's basement here. Everyone that they had killed. That's what that felt like to me.
It was just kind of a disturbing scene, and you got the feeling that they were all pretty disturbed by it.
They catch them in the basement. Sean actually lets them go, which is the amazing thing.
Well, he's the one who finds him. Yeah, he finds him in the basement and holds a gun to him, and
then lowers
doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah, and lets them go. They get away. Here's the thing, and this, I will give this credit. This is more new horror convention, is that you actually let people escape. I thought they were going to be locked in that house the whole time.
Well, they couldn't. There's nowhere to go. I mean, it's so tiny that it would have been impossible to have a good movie with like 3 rooms.
Well, you've already said it's impossible to have a good movie, but they could do it. I've seen movies that have been good where you lock people in a room, and look, the first Saw movie is pretty much everybody in a room. I mean, and that movie's genius compared to this, because again, there's a story being told outside of that room that you're invested in some way if you're in the horror mode. This, though, we're not invested in this because these characters are ridiculous tropes. They're so easy to figure out and so paper thin that it's just, you realize very quickly, well, they're just here for the slaughter, and you're here for this, and it's all too trite, and that's when I really begin turning on the film. As I'm like, well, okay, they did the smart thing. They let them actually get away, but then they just get caught again. And the way they get caught is what's funny to me is they keep getting away, and like the little old lady at the bar offers them a ride, but then she just leaves them locked in the car because she's like, I'm in on it too.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you didn't see that coming. You 4 deserve to die.
And I agree. The whole thing where they get in the old lady's truck, they're like, we just need to get to that one spot, the marker.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They're driving. She stops just short and leaves them locked in there. Good work. What was her name? I don't even remember.
Mary. Yeah,
Mary, yeah.
Because every Irish movie has to have somebody named Mary. So Mary
and Sean.
Mary and Sean and Hamish. Can we get more Irish trope here?
Well, I like the Hamish thing, but
yeah. Well, you know what?
I'm sure they just stole that from the Hunger Games.
Yeah,
but.
Gary Chalk, by the way, can I just say this? I kept looking on Google and stuff. I was like, this guy's got to be a former wrestler of some sort. That's the only reason he's getting featured like this. No, he's just an actor. He's just kind of a big actor. He seems to play this role a lot. I've seen him in other things. I've seen him on The Killing, and he's been on, a show called The 4400 that I used to like and stuff. He's been in stuff. He usually plays the heavy, which you could see. I was like, okay, that's fine. But I actually assumed he was one of like Pat Batterson's old, friends or something. Like, maybe he was from that era or something. I really thought he was. And as it turns out,
you never know with the WWE in it. So, but
well, I mean, I figured at this point, this is all on somebody doing somebody a favor. This is what this movie looks like. They sure enough, and you say the actors, don't look like they know what they're doing. It also looks like that none of them really want to be here. They seem to be like, yeah, we got to go on vacation for a couple weeks, shoot this thing. That's all we get. But they're poorly constructed. But they get captured and tied up to a bunch of trees and just left for sacrifice. And at this point, I'm like, okay, are we ever going to get a decent look at this thing, or is the costume so cheap they're not going to show us? And nope, they give us a decent look because David basically gets it first after Jenny gets her tongue ring torn out, it was gross, but could have been grosser. Fun, right? It was there. David gets slashed across the chest in what I think is Hornswoggle's other scene where his hand claws the guy. Did you know how he got clawed, though, Brian? He had a gold, bunch of, bling from Ice-T's Leprechaun hanging off of his chest, and the Leprechaun went for it and in grabbing it clawed him. It wasn't like he actively tried to kill him. It was like, oh, sorry, I clawed you to death there. I just really want me gold.
Right, and I gotta say, throughout this movie, it's almost like the Leprechaun isn't out to kill, per se. Right? I mean, he doesn't kill on purpose until one person.
Yeah, they use the words, they've got to feed that thing before it eats the rest of our village. It's like it's out to feed, and the fact that maybe it eats gold or something, because the way they play it comes off that way. I don't know. It's really weird, Brian. But he gets up enough strength to free everyone else before he bleeds out. So
right, amazingly.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. So, that poor Jenny, she gets an earring ripped out of her ear and a tongue ring ripped out of her mouth, and she doesn't even get killed yet.
Yeah, I know.
So she's bleeding from 2 appendages already.
Yeah.
Then her boyfriend gets the fun, pretty wicked claws across the body. I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised that they had him free himself and free the... Yeah, right. And that inadvertently frees him from the ropes that are tied to him. He's able to then, even though he's on the brink of death, escape long enough to help free one of the other people, who then helps free the rest of them.
Right.
And they all start running off.
Right, because
they're hightailing.
We should mention at this point that Jenny has been muted because her tongue has been ripped in half because of her tongue ring being ripped out.
The poor girl loses a part of her ear with the earring, and now part of her tongue with a tongue ring. I mean, what's next? I mean, let's hope she doesn't have a belly button ring, or even worse. Well,
let's just talk about what has happened to poor Jenny on this vacation. All right, her best friend has started to make really goofy decisions that she's going to follow a boy to medical school. She's pissed off about that. She can't screw her boyfriend because he gets too drunk and passes out. She gets her ear ripped off, her tongue ripped out, and she's being chased by something she has no idea what it is or why. That's the thing. That's a bad vacation.
That's a terrible vacation, I'd say. Yeah.
So when they finally wind up back in the house with her, let's say it.
Well, they're setting up a trap, right?
Yes, big time.
They're setting up a trap for the leprechaun.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny has got the unfortunate job of waiting outside to alert them and lock the leprechaun in once he goes into the fireplace.
Yes, let's put the girl that can't talk anymore outside as bait, basically.
Well, she's not even as bait. She's there to trap him in so that they can kill him. Right. The bright idea is that they're going to kill this motherfucker. Yes. I think those are the exact words.
Yeah.
And so the plan is they've got this one entrance. They're all inside except for Jenny, who's underneath the deck or whatever you want to call that, patio, where the leprechaun's going to go, get inside, and she's supposed to come up from behind him and close the door and lock it so that he's locked into the fireplace with just them and their multitude of weapons.
Right.
Pickaxe, machete, pipe, right? We're playing Clue here. And so that's the plan. Now, she's dumb because she watches, scared as heck, as the leprechaun starts walking up the steps and over to the fireplace. And before even letting him get in, she comes up from behind to lock him in, and he's just right there.
Yeah, and he turns around like, oh, excuse me? And then as something is coming through the trapdoor, of course, our heroines swing the pickaxe and the axe, and they clobber Jenny in the face.
And my notes are, holy shit, she just axed her friend.
Yeah, I know.
Damn.
I was like, wow. And
split her head in two.
I know, and I thought, well, that was the dumbest thing ever, because now you've given this creature motivation and thinking processes that I didn't know it had displayed before. It's like, y'all are trying to trap me. Well, F that. And he slides her in there. No, it would have just eaten her on the steps, and they'd be like, where's Jenny? That was dumb to have them kill her. And it was a stupid way to try to get us to feel bad for Sophie, and also to make it okay that Ben, is going to get killed in a minute, because that was ridiculous. And can I say how quickly Sophie gets over that? I guess the trauma of what else is going on in her life maybe is excusable for this, but
it's understandable. I mean, I'm sure she had some issues afterwards. However, she's in a fight for her life. So, I just killed my best friend. Oh well. Yeah. Move on and save yourself.
Exactly, yeah. So they continue upstairs. The leprechaun's coming, and Sean comes in behind them, because Sean and Hamish, of course, are still giving chase, trying to make sure this goes down, because they need the sacrifice to happen or whatever. They still haven't really totally explained it. We're filling in the gaps based on what they've said. And Sean does another callback, and I think I texted you in the midst of this. I texted you the following. Nice callback to part one with the asshole who can't hit the broadside of a barn with a friggin' shotgun. It's like they go back to the leprechaun on the skateboard moment with the gun. And I'm like, you're wasting your shells. You're wasting your shells. Oh, you've only got 5. Oh, yeah, it's over. But they get away. He lets him go again, of course, because he's not loaded anymore. But
I don't think he really wants to kill them.
Well, I don't think he does either. He's trying to hit the leprechaun, but he can't. And I'm like, well, this is dumb now. Like, where is the leprechaun? Is it like dematerializing and rematerializing? We don't know. It's just he's shooting at noises in a bushel of crap. Yeah, it's garbage. It's just dumb. And eventually Hamish gets knocked down the steps and gets eaten by the leprechaun. We see that go down. We're getting to another cabin where Ben gets taken away and he lets Sophie get away, so that redeems him, right? It's like, no, you go, you go. And he gets torn to shreds, and who gives a shit?
He gets despined.
Yeah, that's the most
But he didn't really have
kill.
one in the first place.
Yeah, which I think is what they're trying to say, is that, he actually did have a backbone as the leprechaun rips it out. And I'm sitting there going, like, when did this thing become the monster from Relic? I was like, this is weird.
This thing becomes everything, right?
Yeah, it is everything.
He has nothing of his own.
No.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, the boyfriend gets despined, and then she starts just taking off and running for her life.
She's running for that barrier that she thinks she has discovered, right? She's running for this barrier, and along the way, she trips over the bag and the machete from the opening scene, and we see gold coins spell out. So now we go back to that and go, oh, that's what those people were running for. They had ripped off the leprechaun too. And
so that tells me now, does that tell you that the beginning scene was Hamish and his friends?
Well, no, because that guy is dead because he gets his finger bitten off, a la part 2 and 3, I think it was, because he has on a gold ring. So, no, that's just some other random tourist that they've suckered into this deal. That's what I think is happening.
All right.
But yeah, they are. I didn't think that was a callback to years before. I thought that was other dead
just
people.
Another sacrifice.
Yeah, early sacrifice. And so she grabs the coins, and how she figures out to do this, I don't understand, Brian. She grabs the coins and begins to jingle them in her hands in like a way that is to tease the leprechaun like you do a baby. Like, you have small children, right? Shiny things, and the leprechaun's like, and then she grabs the machete, and we get F you Lucky Charms before she chops its head. Ugh.
Well, I will say this. My wife said to me, about this movie, she goes, I miss the leprechaun's humor.
Yeah, there is none.
There isn't any. This is the only retarded line that we get in the whole movie that has anything similar to the previous leprechauns. Fuck you, Lucky Charms. Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
It's the only thing that ties this movie back to the campiness of the old.
What's great, though, is the way she says it. The emphatic, fuck you, Lucky Charms. And then she chops his head off. I mean, it's like badass. Like the kid that said that in the first one, it was kind of funny. This is like, I'm taking my life back. And it's this resolve. Right. Forget the fact that I just axed my friend in the face, and my boyfriend who didn't want me is dead, and I don't know how the hell I'm going to get out of here because I also have no money on me. Yeah, I have no passport, I have no money, and I have no way of explaining what the hell just happened. Yeah, well, I have no money, no way of explaining what in the hell just happened to me. So, right. How am I going to explain that to you? Yeah, whatever. It's not meant to know. I actually was figuring she was going to turn around and trip in a mine and die too, because she might as well have. Because what she does, Brian, is then get up and start running, and we hear like this chittering of. I called it, the predators make a noise when they're hunting. This is what the leprechauns make when they're hunting, leading us to believe that there are more coming. And I looked at the counter and I was like, 1 hour and 19 minutes. And I texted you again and I said, do I need to hang around for the credit sequence or is that it?
Yeah, no.
And thankfully you saved me 11 minutes of my life.
It was ridiculously long.
Yes.
I watched the whole credit sequence thinking there has to be something to see here because it's a long sequence. I looked at the time and said, okay, there's a lot of time before this is supposed to be over. It can't be just all on credits. There's got to be something. No. Yeah. It's just noise and photos and stupidity.
Yes.
I wasted so much time watching and waiting for something, anything to come up, and nothing did.
That may be the best 3-word review we could have given this movie. Noise, photos, and stupidity. So, well, Brian, I think we are at the part of the podcast where we give our final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for Leprechaun Origins?
This film has absolutely no business being tied to the original Leprechaun franchise. It has nothing to do with it. The Leprechaun that we covered, I'm not going to say loved because that's a way overstatement, but almost wish that was back with this thing because the campy humor of the Leprechaun is what made it. You can make the Warwick Davis Leprechaun scary pretty easily, I would say. and still keep his one-liners, his campiness going, and make a good movie out of it. But this is nothing like those old Leprechaun movies, which in a way is probably good and in a way is kind of bad. But to call this a Leprechaun movie is a slap in the face to everything that Warwick Davis did with that series. I'm not saying the Leprechaun series is great by any means. However, I would rather go back and watch Leprechaun 2 than watch this thing again, because it's not a Leprechaun movie. And WWE basically slapped me in the face to even call this a Leprechaun movie. And I don't care that this is supposed to be a 2-picture deal, Jay. I don't really care if they come out with a second one, because I'm not going to bother with it. It doesn't belong in this series, retrospective, at all. And I can't imagine the second one will either. So, the other thing is, to call Dylan Post a star of this movie is a joke. We counted 2 scenes where maybe he was involved in it because they had to use a hand both times. Right? That's it. He has 0 lines. His face is never on screen. You can't imagine that his body was ever used. The only thing I could think of was that he was the stunt double for the Leprechaun during the filming process, and then they just edited him out the whole time.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of, because he's not in this. To say he starred in this is a joke.
Yeah.
This wasn't a Leprechaun. It had no Leprechaun in it. If this were a standalone horror film, in the vein of a Urban Legends or a Jeepers Creepers or some crap like that, I would say this is an okay horror film that basically uses every trope possible. And that would be okay. I could be a little bit entertained by it, but not a whole ton. For me, this is a small popcorn. I wouldn't watch it again. I am so glad I didn't go out and buy the damn DVD and just rented it for my $4.99 or whatever I paid for the HD version. And I'll never watch it again.
Brian, I will only amend what you have said as to this. Is I don't know that you can make Leprechaun scary. You could make it a good horrific experience, and you could tell a story with it, but they weren't interested in any of that. This is just a smashed together bunch of horror tropes and monster movie tropes to try and cash grab on on horror movies that are successful right now. Horror movies are making money at the box office. They're interested. It's this time of year. It's the right time to do it. But this one has nothing to do with an origin story. It has nothing to do with the previous iterations of the franchise. There was just nothing here to be involved in and enjoy. And that's the most damning thing I can say about this, is that even for a tropey C to B- level horror flick, this doesn't even work on that level. It's, I've joked with you that the latest Geico commercial where the people are running around going, "No, that's Hide Behind the Chainsaws," looks like it was ripped out of outtakes of this. And I'm not so certain that maybe it wasn't, because it looks almost like the same people. It's terrible. It's terribly done. It is by far the worst of all the Leprechaun films, and that is saying something, because some of those are just crap, and we have talked about that. But you know what? At least those things operated in a universe where it stayed somewhat consistent. This is just a bunch of commercials for better made, more interesting horror tales. This is terrible. Smallest of burnt popcorns. Never want to watch it again. I hope that they don't even bother with another one. I don't want to see another one. I don't want to see another one. I don't want to know what another one would look like, because I have no interest in following this path. And I hope the WWE just gives it up and moves on, because this is terrible. It's terrible in every possible way. So, small popcorn for me too. Blech, bad. So, I hate to end Shocktober like this, because, man, we have put out a ton of horror content. You and I did 10 Halloween movies, right? With all kinds of ratings and success in there. Well, this really makes Halloween 5 and 6 look awesome, right? So,
big time.
Yeah. So there's that. We did those. Ron and I jumped in and did The House of the Devil and Annabelle. And then you and I finished it up here with Leprechaun Origins. And hey, in November, we're going down some more horror. Ron and I have got the Tales from the Crypt movies coming up. And so we've done all 3 of those. So we're staying in the genre for a little bit here.
Oh, and don't forget, Jay, coming in December,
yeah,
Santa's Sleigh.
Go ahead and tell people what that is so that they know.
We were trying to come up with a good movie to do for Christmas that could tie into the genres that we really have fun with. And you know, we know, Jay, you're a major horror movie buff.
Yeah.
And I really like horror movies as well. Not quite as much as you have per se, but I enjoy watching good horror films. So we looked around and we thought maybe, Black Christmas maybe, but no, that's not our taste. And then lo and behold, I found somewhere in the depths of Amazon that Bill Goldberg did a horror flick called Santa's Sleigh, in which he becomes an evil Santa Claus. And I said to you, this was probably 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
I said, we need to do this movie. And we just couldn't find a place to fit it in before. But now, I think we found our year. We're gonna all do that. Ron's gonna join us, I believe.
Yep.
And we're all gonna take a look at Santa's Sleigh, starring Bill Goldberg as an evil Santa Claus. It's gonna be awesome.
Indeed. And lest we forget our other big series for December, I've dragged my wife in on this gig. She's gone from just watching these things with me to now she's part of our review team. We're doing the Twilight movies, all 5 of them right there. I don't know what's more horrific. The idea of reviewing those again and trying to explain what I enjoyed about them, because I'm not a Twihard, folks, but I'm not going to lie to tell you I hated those movies. So there's that. And then to do Santa's Sleigh, it's going to be a whale of a December. That is for sure. And then next year, we've already got stuff ready to go for next year, too. Lots of cool reviews. I mean, you talk about you and Ron and I doing stuff together. We've got 2 of maybe the worst films ever coming out that we've ever done.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to those. We're going to tease those for you a little bit, folks. We've also got some good stuff, too. We've got a big review to start off next year. I'm not going to talk about right now, but it is a major movie that is considered to be one of the greatest crime films of all time. Ron and our friend Kurt Fabish reviewed that. That's coming out. And then so much more planned and ready to go for next winter and spring, too. Can't wait. Brian, can you believe it's been 5 years nearly we've been doing
5 years
this podcast, Continuous Play Film Strip and everything? Wow, it's what a run. And we are we're really only getting started. It feels like we've got so much stuff we've reviewed, and there's so much more that we want to get to.
There's so much in the can that we just want to get to, just haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome.
We got that. We've also got on our sister podcast, The Art of Slaying, 7 years, 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer there for people to download and enjoy. The Buffy reviews, probably the thing that we're most known for outside of Film Strip here, are those Buffy reviews. So
absolutely. And people keep asking us about the Angel podcast. We promised that is definitely coming in 2015.
Yep.
So just be patient with us. We got a lot of stuff to get through before we get there, but we're just trying to wrap up how we're going to do it exactly and all that stuff. And once we get that going, that's going to be a fun ride as well.
Indeed, to go through the 5 seasons of the Angel show. And then, of course, all the movies we're going to review, plus Squared Circle Flashbacks, Brian, your wrestling podcast.
Yeah, so we took a little break over the summer after releasing a couple episodes. I think we put out 3 episodes last spring, took a break over the summer, and we just started now putting them back out again. We've got episodes for Halloween, we got an episode for Thanksgiving, and we got an episode for Christmas coming up, all really tied to, at least the 2, the Halloween one and the Thanksgiving one, are tied to events that occurred around those times. So we just put out Halloween Havoc 1993 with you, myself, and my buddy Keith. And in November, we're throwing together a Starcade, which used to be the annual Halloween pay-per-view for the NWA. And until WWF kind of took over with their Survivor Series, they were the ones always on the Thanksgiving night. So we'll have that coming out. And then a good flashback, we're going to re-release the film strip episode of No Holds Barred, one of my all-time favorites that we've done, Jay. And we're going to tie that to the event that happened that really was built around that movie, and that is SummerSlam 1989. Zeus and Beefcake, or Zeus and Savage versus Beefcake and Hogan. We have all that coming up for Squared Circle Flashbacks and much more. I mean, we're hoping to get an episode a month out there. That's my goal. And so far we've got enough to get us through, I think, January or February in the bag, and we'll continue to do those.
Oh, very cool. So lots of fun stuff coming up, folks. You can follow all of it at continuousplaypodcast.com. Click the link of your choice there to find the retrospective in the series you want. Of course, the Fabish Factor Kurt Framish's podcast. Very popular and still there as well, so you can check that out. And as new episodes come out, we'll promote them too. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. Throw things at us you want to hear us review. You never know. We may do it. I mean, House of the Devil was a suggestion off of Twitter that we took and ran with. So throw it out there. We're always interested in interacting with our fans and hearing from you guys and see what you think as well. Until next time, for Brian, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to The Film Strip.
Sorry to give you such a scare.